Welcome back. You're still tuned in to News and Views with myself, Salayelo Makudir. It's been a really, really busy morning as we've been trying to give you all of the latest news updates, protest action that's currently happening in Johannesburg. There's been a big water crisis that has been unfolding. One protest actually taking place right outside our studios here at Xavier Bridge. So, right outside. And all of this is happening at a backdrop of a very, very important day because in just a few hours out in Cape Town, President Cyril Ramaphosa will be delivering the State of the Nation address, the most significant policy and political moment on the national calendar. SONA almost acts like a legislative agenda, frames out government's priorities. What are the plans that the government has for the year, and also gives signals to some of the administration's strategy heading deeper into an election cycle. As I mentioned, all of this is happening while across Johannesburg, across most parts of South Africa, there are water protests that are underway. People are angry. Frustration is boiling over, and the realities that are shaping public sentiment is a lot of times a contrast to what the government usually delivers to the nation. So it's going to be a very, very interesting day. And we're going to be unpacking what's at stake here politically and what we should be expecting from the president as he's going to be giving us a State of the Nation address later today at around 7 p.m. Out in Cape Town, and we're going to be dissecting some of the important points with political analyst and very, very good friend of the station, Professor Sipho Seepe. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to News and Views. I really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
No, the pleasure is all ours. And I think we'll jump right into it. Just from your opinion, the State of the Nation address, how would you assess the political climate and just how high the stakes are for this particular SONA? Because for me personally, it almost feels like the State of the Nation address has lost its sheen. It has lost its shine. South Africans, in the most part, are no longer interested in listening to what the president has to say and some of the plans that he has outlined for the year for the state.
I think you started this program correctly by talking about the protests that are taking place. Because when we talk about the State of the Nation, we should look at it at a number of levels. The first level is that of what democracy promised. We look at the promise of the post-1994 dispensation. And the post-1994 dispensation, in terms of where are we as a nation, was around the dismantling of the apartheid legacy and apartheid infrastructure and apartheid architecture. And that is what would be the first level in which we're saying, where are we as a nation post 1994? And if you look at that, we have not done well because the architecture of apartheid is still intact. It has not been disturbed. We still have all those things that define the Black people as a problem to be solved. We still have those triple challenges that we had in 1994 of unemployment, inequality, and poverty. So that defines the state of the nation at a broader level. So that would be one thing that when we talk about the state of a nation, that where are we? How do we define ourselves? And I think, in a sense, we have moved from that sense of asking who are we and how are we faring in this democracy to now reducing it to managerialism, into stating what we said we're going to achieve. But while that is important, and it is something that would go to the second level of the state of a nation, which is especially of this administration, where are we in terms of the Ramaphosa administration? And what we know is that we can now judge him based on the promise that he has made. And so that is the second level to say, how has Ramaphosa fared since he became a president in 2018 and now? And when you look at that, you see a president who has been weakened politically and economically, We have seen the president who took the ANC from 62% to 57 to 40%. So you have a president, a person who took his party, despite the claims that we were told that is more popular than the ANC. He
mm,
took the ANC to a state where it is now battling to get even a majority. So you do not have politically a president who has actually done well politically. And then you now have the third level of a state of a nation, which would be an assessment of his presidency post 2024, which is how has he fared with within the notion of the coalition government. But we must not shy away from judging him by how he has failed when you take a party that has a robust share of the vote of 62% to 40%, that by any stretch of imagination is not success. It's actually failure. And in democracies, if a president were to lose even 5%, that person will not wait. They will actually simply walk away. They will resign. But we
mm,
have a very strange scenario here where people who fail are actually rewarded and they walk around as if they have actually won. When the ANC got to 40%, the most honorable thing that Ramaphosa should have done to say, look, I have tried. I've led you guys into two elections. And in those two elections, we have actually gone down significantly. I mean,
mm,
losing 17% of the share of a vote in one electoral cycle is calamitous. It is humongous. And yet you have Ramaphosa who walks around as if he is the best thing that ever happened to this country. Then we now look at what the promise he made last year. The promises are the same promises that he has always been making. One is on economic growth. And if you look at the work of economists, they will actually tell you that South Africa has never performed so poorly
mm,
since 2018. That when he took over, the economic growth was around 1.5, 1.3. It went down to now stagnating around zero point 0.8. So you can't say somebody who had we had built this hype around the person who understands the economy that things will get better. They have not gotten better; they've gotten worse. We were told that we have a problem with electricity. Instead, there's been an attempt to privatize ESCOM and to dismantle ESCOM. And we saw a period of serious load shedding from 2018 to 2023. That is very disastrous. And the economic damage that was done was that many countries, many companies that would have wanted to invest in South Africa chose not to invest. So that is his legacy in the last 6 years. And for the last year, we now found a new word to almost cover up the failures. We now talk of
mm,
load reduction. But for many in the street, it is simply the absence of electricity or intermittent electricity. And for people who are business people, they would like to have assurance that the machines are going to be running. The mining community have been very clear about that. They cannot have a situation where the base load is not guaranteed. And that's where we are. And in your introduction, you were also mentioning the protest. Now we've moved from load shedding to water shedding. If you
mm,
look at the places like Gauteng, Midrand, the Val, you look at the other parts of the country, the water has become a problem. So you cannot look at that as a form of success. But then there's also something called performance at the local level. It was Ramaphosa himself who told the members of the ANC in the municipalities that the way the DA governs, they seem to be doing better. And he later corrected that no, he was talking about the financial discipline. But the long
mm,
and short of it is that the people like Helen leapt on that and made the meal out of it to say, well, where we govern, we do it better, but you don't have to hear it from me. You can hear it from the president of the country and the
mm,
president of the ANC. But we know that at the local level where the ANC is supposed to be holding fort, service delivery suffers. It's not only an issue of them failing to get clean audits, but it appears that the clean audits are almost an indicator that money is not used properly. Then you have the also promise of corruption. The president is the last person to talk about that. If you look at the issue of Palapala, what we have been told, when people get arrested for having foreign money in their pockets, in their
mm,
houses, here you have a president with foreign money in the mattresses, somebody who should have known that the money should have been in the bank. And there are other laws that he has actually failed, that he has violated with that reality. And the parliamentary panel has been very clear. But what we have with law enforcement agencies, every one of them, except SARS,
mm,
all of them, there's a case of we see no evil, we hear no evil, and we'll tell no evil. So you can't
mm,
then say you are you are dealing with corruption, and then you have some of your people who have been implicated negatively within the SONA Commission, and those are people that you have retained. So how do you go and talk to people that you are dealing with corruption when you have that reality? So that is the state of a nation. It's a state of paralysis. But what we're going to hear is a president who's going to make more promises and who are also going to tell South Africans what they want to hear. But really, what South Africans want is a simple thing, which the ANC promised in 1994, which a post 1994 dispensation promise,
mm,
which
mm.
is a better life for all. And we know that for Black people, things have become harder.
Mm, mm. And I think what's interesting for me is the fact that we're seeing a shift, when it comes to service delivery in the country. Traditionally, you would expect, these protests to happen. You'd expect them to happen in the outskirts of the city, but it almost feels like they've encroached. They've encroached to the suburbs. They've encroached to some of the high earning areas. How concerning is that aspect, that we've come to a point where things are so bad that no one is insulated anymore from the failing system that is our government and the failures of service delivery?
Well, I mean, it means that you can lie to people up to a point. If you have policies that are incorrect, if you do not have new ideas, more of the same is not going to work. And it comes as no surprise that what you had in the suburbs was more resilience, but what you were dealing with was things that were collapsing.
Mm,
And you also look at even the sense of hopelessness. We have young people who graduate to unemployment. And what do you think is going to happen to those young people? They have the energy, they have a government that tells them that they are lazy, and you have a cash in transit, and where the police run away, and the police themselves said, no, but we cannot deal with crime, because if we deal with crime harshly, we are the ones who are going to be facing the music in the courts. The courts are going to be seen to be protecting the criminals than being on the side of the law enforcement agencies. So what the police do, they simply watch things happen. So what we have here, we have a state of paralysis. So if you
mm,
want to talk about the state of the nation, you're talking about this a state of intellectual bankruptcy where there are no new ideas. What we
mm,
have is people who are more concerned about vote for us. Now the ANC will be going out telling people that they should vote for it. Things will be different, but it will be more of the same. You have internal wranglings within the ANC itself. You don't know where it stands. And when it comes to coalition partners, the GNU is not working. What it what it has succeeded in doing is to survive. It has shown a resilience. But when you listen to members there, there's a policy incoherence. And when you think about the president's performance in the White House, it was the most embarrassing to an
mm,
extent that we found our members telling Trump that the problem in South Africa is crime and corruption, almost like going to a foreign government to say, help us deal with crime. help us deal with corruption. So you are talking about publicly members of the Ramaphosa's cabinet telling foreign government to say, oh, we are not, we are in government to get rid of, to make sure that MKP or the EFF does not get in. How does that become an issue of a foreign policy when you should actually be talking about that what is it that you have to offer and to the US and the US has to offer to you? More, there could be a convergence of interest because it is you should be looking for mutually beneficial engagement. But what you were doing, you went there and you almost presented yourself as people who are there to beg for assistance, that you have no leadership, you have no government, you simply want to be bailed out of your own problems. So I don't think that is the state of the nation that we want as South Africans.
Mm, mm, mm. What would a convincing State of the Nation address be from President Cyril Ramaphosa? Because for me, I've been following the SONA for some years now, been to some in Cape Town for some years now, and it almost feels like every year we shift the goalpost. There's no clear plan, and there's no almost looking back and seeing just how much we've achieved, and the president telling the public, the South Africans, that we actually laid out this plan, we failed on such and such, and this is the percentage or measure that we've given ourselves. Here's what more resources we're going to invest in the new year. It's almost this year we're going to build a road, and then we're going to build bridges, and we're going to build a smart city, and then next year we shift the goalpost, is we're going to build high-speed trains, and there's going to be coding in schools. We're shifting the goalpost each and every year without reflecting back on what was planned out or set out for the previous year. What would be a State of the Nation address that's convincing, and also that outlines clearly just how much we've achieved, how much we've failed, and what we look to plan going forward?
Well, I think the first thing that South Africans want is a president who could be truthful. If he can start by
Exactly.
saying, I made these promises and we failed. And and these are the reasons why we failed. And this is how we're going to rectify them. But there should be an element of honesty. But we know that this honesty and this president are not, they don't work together. You cannot use the word honesty in the same sentence and bring Ramaphosa into the picture. I mean, this is the same president who told us that he was going to build 1 million houses in Alexandria. And then when he was reminded of that in Parliament, he said, no, but I listened to the tape. And when I listened to it, I did not say 1 million. And everybody knew that that's what he said. And that's why Malema decided to say, but Mr. President, if you have made a mistake, accept it. So I think the first thing that needs to, when you talk about State of the Nation address, is to acknowledge their failures and then account for those failures and deal with why those people who had actually failed and failed you as a president. But at the same time, you must also uh, accept your own failures and then ask
Mm,
yourself whether you are fit to continue to be a president. In other countries, people have stepped down to simply
mm,
say, I thought I'll do this, but I can't. But what we're going to have are lies again. The thrust of this year's statement of the nation address is that we've turned the corner. Well, it's not that we have dismantled. I mean, if we look at what happened to ESCOM, now the truth is coming out. Instead,
true.
what Ramaphosa has been saying has been hiding behind state capture. But
Mm,
if we will talk about the real estate capture, where all law enforcement agencies are now afraid to say, Mr. President, you messed up. You had the Constitutional Court where the EFF says, for the first time, you have a case that the Constitutional Court does not want to deal with, the issue of Palapal. And that case has been there for more than a year, 14 months, and the Constitutional Court has not delivered. But the same Constitutional Court that has, on other instances that are questionable, has been so quick in coming up with a judgment. But on this one, just like the law enforcement agencies, you find a certain form of tiptoeing, then you must ask, don't we really now have real estate capture? Why?
mm,
And then if you thought the judiciary are the last form of defense, which I don't, I think the people are the last form of defense of any democracy. But what we've done, we have actually elevated the role of the judiciary above the people. Any democracy starts with the people. And
mm,
any democracy is really about how the people feel and experience reality. And as we go to the local elections, just like when we went to the national elections, the people were going to vote based on their experiences, not based on the promises that are made by the politicians.
mm, there's what around three years, that's left of this administration if you don't count 2026. So this is Ramaphosa's last leg as president of South Africa. Is there still time to salvage the legacy of his administration? Is there still time to, I don't know, get something in order? He speaks of the 9 wasted years under former President Jacob Zuma, but it almost feels like his 2 terms can be described along the same lines. Is there still time for him to realign and try and salvage a bit of his legacy as president of South Africa and of his administration?
Well, there's an article about Juma Ngobule, which appeared in the Sunday Times of the 1st of February. He writes, and he writes objectively and using statistics. He says the the years of waste under Ramaphosa is worse than what
Mm,
you had under Jacob Zuma. And he puts that in terms of percentages. He says, if you take, for instance, load shedding, he says the contribution of the Ramaphosa administration in terms of load shedding is about 95%. Under Zuma, it was at 3.5%, and it was addressed. It deals with the issue of economy. That under Zuma, the economy hovered around economic growth around 1.5 and 1.8 and 1.3. Under Ramaphosa, it has gone below 1%. So he does that with other things, including investment. He says, yes, what we have had with Ramaphosa has been more public relations. But if
mm,
you objectively look at the performance of Ramaphosa and Zuma's performance, he says Ramaphosa, by any objective measure, is the worst president that we've actually had. And he says even this argument about COVID-19 does not wash because the economy went down even before COVID-19. And even the whole notion of state capture, because people have bought into the narrative, it has been overstated. We need to go back to say how much was actually lost and then put that in numbers and look at the damage that occurred because of load shedding from 2018 to 2023, and the continuing load shedding and load reduction and now water shedding. So the disaster is is unmitigated. So it is very important that we have a thorough way of looking this objectively. So I don't think, given the next coming 3 years, you can actually reverse that. Instead, there's been a reversal of all the things that were achieved during that time.
mm. No, most definitely. Prof, thank you so much for giving us your time. I think we'll all be waiting with bated breaths for the State of the Nation address, hoping that something different will come out this time around, but it really doesn't look likely. We're going to leave it here for now, and I'm sure we're going to chat again soon just to dissect what the president had to say.
Okay, thank you.
There you go, Professor Sipho Seepe, political analyst, giving us, I think, very, very important insights on the state of the nation and how the president of the country has gone about delivering plans, what this administration has set out for the year. And for me, it's always the same thing. It's not an issue of how he delivers the State of the Nation address and what it sounds and looks like. It's always about how we never reflect. No one asked questions about the smart city that was supposed to be built in Lanseria in the previous State of the Nation address. No one. What about the high-speed trains that was supposed to be built between Polokwane, Gauteng, connecting to the KZN and Durban. President mentioned that this year there'll be coding and the use of AI in our schools, and artificial intelligence will be used to combat crime in our cities. But Mr. President, where? Can someone ask that question? Can before you start, maybe someone should say before you start on the 2026 State of the Nation address, can we take stock of the previous State of the Nation address? How many of the outlined goals have we actually achieved? Granted, we can't achieve all of them. What were the shortfalls? What is needed from South Africans right now? How can South Africans help the government achieve those goals? Can we have an honest president for once who's not scared to stand in front of his constituency and say, we have failed on such and such and such, we've achieved on such and such and such, and we need South Africans to help us here and here and there? Wouldn't that make the State of the Nation address just a bit more appealing to watch, to know that you're getting real-time updates from the government, you're getting an honest assessment of the country, instead of these big plans and all of this technical jargon that is going to be used for almost an hour and a half to 2 hours, with people sleeping in parliament, some zoning out, and just the pomp and the fashion show being the center of it rather than what comes out from the president. I used to look forward to the State of the Nation address. When you see the 21 gun salute from the SANDF, when you see them marching and you see all of the pomp and the ceremony around it, and you feel like, oh my God, this is the best country in the world. And then the president opens his mouth and you're like, yeah, that's the reality. No clear plan, no clear goals, just shifting the goalpost and making South Africans hope that a better tomorrow is coming. How do you even speak of AI and high-speed trains when water can't get water from the taps in 2026 in a country like ours? It's embarrassing. You can engage with us on our studio line. You can tell us if you'll be watching the State of the Nation address. Are you still excited for it? Do you want to hear the president outline what plans his government has for the year, or you just don't care anymore? Because it never really filters down. Nothing announced by the president has ever reached you, the ordinary South African. Going to take a quick break. We'll continue giving you our real-time broadcast of this water protest is currently happening outside of our offices at the Xavier Bridge. You can head over to our social media pages to get the latest, get reactions from members of the community, because yeah, it's really getting out of hand, and all of this is happening in the backdrop of that State of the Nation address. We're going to take a quick break. News and Views will be back with you after this.